Alexander Frost, 34 years old, worth $12 billion, and incapable of feeling a single human emotion. Or so the world believed. His empire stretched across continents, tech, real estate, pharmaceuticals. Everything he touched turned to gold. Everything he loved turned to ash. That's what happens when you build walls so high. Even sunlight can't reach your soul. I should know. I've been standing in his shadow for 3 years. My name is Elena Hayes, and I'm his executive assistant. The woman who manages his calendar, screens his calls, and somehow survived him. The first day I met Alexander Frost, I swore I'd last a week. Maximum. His previous assistant had quit mid-meeting, literally walked out crying while he continued his conference call without missing a beat. The one before her lasted 3 days. The record, 2 months. "Miss Hayes," he'd said, not looking up from his tablet. His voice was like expensive whiskey, smooth, dark, and dangerous. "Do you cry easily?" Straightened my shoulders. "Only at weddings and animal rescue commercials, Mr. Frost." His eyes had lifted then. Arctic blue, sharp enough to cut glass. A ghost of something, amusement, curiosity, flickered across his face before vanishing. "Hired. Don't make me regret it. 3 years. 1,095 days of maintaining perfect professionalism while working 18-hour days beside a man who never smiled, never laughed, never showed a crack in his diamond-hard exterior. I learned his coffee order: black, no sugar, exactly 185 degrees. I memorized his schedule down to the minute. I knew when he was about to fire someone just by the way his jaw tightened. I became indispensable, invisible, and impossibly attached to a man made of ice. But ice melts. Eventually, everything melts. It started with small things. The way his hand would linger when passing me documents. How his eyes would find mine across crowded boardrooms, holding my gaze for just a second too long. The night he worked through a migraine because we had a deadline, and I brought him painkillers without him asking. He'd looked at me like I'd performed a miracle. "How did you know?" he'd asked quietly. "I always know, Mr. Frost." Something shifted in his expression then. Something warm and dangerous and utterly terrifying. But I convinced myself it was nothing. He was Alexander Frost. Billionaires don't fall for their assistants. That only happens in movies and romance novels. Real life is contracts and confidentiality agreements, and maintaining appropriate professional boundaries. Until the night everything changed. It was 11 p.m. on a Thursday in October. Rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, each drop like a bullet against glass. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. Just us, as usual. Him reviewing acquisition documents for the Tokyo merger, me finalizing his schedule for the Singapore trip, and responding to the endless stream of emails that never seemed to stop. The silence between us was comfortable, familiar. 3 years had taught us how to exist in each other's space without words. "Elena." His voice cut through the quiet like a blade through silk. I looked up. He was standing by the window, his reflection ghostly in the dark glass, city lights scattered behind him like fallen stars. For the first time in 3 years, Alexander Frost looked lost. "You think I'm a good man?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy and unexpected. This wasn't my boss speaking. This was something else, someone else, someone human and hurting and desperately trying to hide it. I set down my pen carefully, buying time to think. "I think you're a complicated man, Mr. Frost." He turned, and I saw something I'd never seen before: pain. Raw and real and utterly human. It stripped away every layer of ice, every piece of armor, until all that remained was a man who'd forgotten how to be vulnerable. My father died today, 10 years ago today. His words were quiet, almost swallowed by the storm outside. Massive heart attack in his office. 58 years old. His last words to me were that I'd never amount to anything, that I was too soft, too emotional, too weak to survive in his world. He paused, jaw working like he was chewing glass. I built this entire empire to prove him wrong, to show him I wasn't the failure he said I was. Every company I acquired, every deal I closed, every competitor I crushed, it was all for him. And now, his voice cracked, just barely. Now he's been dead for a decade, and I'm still trying to prove something to Ghost. My heart shattered for him, for the boy who turned himself to ice just to survive his father's cruelty. For the man who'd forgotten what warmth felt like. I stood slowly, every instinct screaming at me to maintain professional distance. But something stronger pulled me forward. Something that had been building for 3 years of late nights and stolen glances and moments that felt like more than they should. Mr. Frost Alexander. His voice was barely a whisper. My name is Alexander, and I don't know how to be anything other than this. I don't know how to be soft. I don't know how to feel. I've been frozen for so long, I've forgotten what it's like to be warm. Confession hung between us like a prayer. Like a plea, I crossed the space between us, my heels clicking against marble, until I stood close enough to see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes. Close enough to smell his cologne, cedar, and something darker, more complex. Close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body despite all that ice. "You don't have to be anything," I whispered. "You just have to be real. And you don't have to do it alone." His hand came up, trembling, actually trembling, as he touched my face. His fingers were warm against my cheek, gentle in a way I'd never imagined Alexander Frost could be gentle. "You terrify me, Elena Hayes." My heart was a war drum in my chest, pounding so hard I was certain he could hear it. Why? Because when I'm with you, the ice starts to melt, and I don't know what's underneath anymore. I don't know who I am without all these walls. You make me want to be human again, and that's the most terrifying thing I've ever felt. Kiss, when it came, was everything 3 years of restraint had been holding back. Desperate and tender and fierce, all at once. A man drowning and finding air for the first time. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, closer, like he was afraid I might disappear if he let go. I tasted rain and coffee, and something sweeter, hope maybe, possibility. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "Wanted to do that since the day you told me you only cry at weddings," he confessed. I laughed, breathless and dizzy. "That was 3 years ago." "I know. I've been counting the days. One perfect moment, the world was right. The Ice King had melted, and underneath was someone real and warm and capable of love. But fairy tales don't exist in boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. The next morning, Alexander's phone rang at 6 a.m., shattering the peace we'd found in each other's arms. I watched the warmth drain from his face as he listened, replaced by that familiar ice I'd come to dread. "I see. Thank you for informing me." Hung up, jaw tight. And suddenly, the man from last night, vulnerable and real and mine, had vanished behind those impenetrable walls. That was Marcus, my head of security. Someone leaked photos of us last night. The press has them. My competitors have them. And my board of directors is calling an emergency meeting in 2 hours. My stomach dropped like a stone. "Alexander, this is exactly what I was afraid of." His voice was flat, dead, devoid of any emotion. "They'll use you to destroy me. They'll dig into your life, tear apart your reputation, question every decision I've made since you started working here. They'll make you wish you'd never met me. Don't care what they—" "I do." The words exploded from him, and for a moment, real emotion broke through. "You don't understand what they're capable of, Elena. My world is poison. It destroys everything beautiful. Everyone I've ever cared about has either left or been driven away. My mother, my sister, every friend I thought I had, they all learned that loving me comes at too high a price." He was pulling away, rebuilding his walls right in front of me, brick by frozen brick, and I could feel him slipping through my fingers. "So, what are you saying?" My voice shook despite my best efforts to keep it steady. "I'm saying this," he gestured between us, his hand trembling slightly, "was a mistake. A beautiful mistake, but a mistake nonetheless. You should submit your resignation. I'll provide excellent references and 6 months severance, enough to don't you dare." I stepped forward, fury and heartbreak warring in my chest. "Don't you dare turn back into the Ice King now. Not after you finally let me see the real you. Not after you told me you've wanted this for 3 years. Real me." His laugh was bitter, sharp enough to draw blood. "The real me is exactly what you see right now. Cold, calculating, incapable of maintaining anything that matters. My father was right about me. I'm too weak to protect the people I love. So I became strong enough not to love anyone at all." The word escaped before I could stop it. "Is that what you were going to say?" "Because I don't believe you, Alexander. I've seen the way you anonymously donate to children's hospitals. I've watched you tear up reading letters from families your medical research has saved. I've seen you pay for your doorman's daughter's college tuition and pretend it was a scholarship. I felt the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. Silence, heavy and absolute. The kind of silence that precedes either salvation or destruction, then, quietly, almost too quiet to hear. Someone threatened you yesterday, before the photos leaked, before any of this." My blood went cold, he continued, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "They sent a message to my personal line, the one only 5 people in the world have access to. Said if I didn't back out of the quantum merger, they'd hurt the person I care about most. They'd make sure I understood what it costs to have a heart." World tilted sideways. "Alexander, I didn't know who they meant at first. I've spent years making sure I didn't care about anyone, that there was no vulnerability they could exploit. But then I realized, God, Elena, everyone knows. Everyone can see what I've spent 3 years trying to hide. That you're not just my assistant. You're You're not just the person who organizes my life. You're my weakness, my vulnerability. The only person who makes me feel human. The only person who makes me want to be human. His eyes met mine, blazing with more emotion than I'd ever seen from him. Fear and love and desperate determination, all warring for dominance. And I will not let them hurt you, even if it means losing you myself, even if it means going back to being frozen forever. Your safety is worth more than my happiness. In that moment, I understood him completely. The walls, the ice, the carefully constructed armor, it had never been about not caring. It had been about caring too much and being terrified of what that meant. I crossed to him, taking his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. Really look at me. You said I terrify you. Well, you terrify me too. Because somewhere between scheduling your meetings and working until midnight and learning how you take your coffee, I fell in love with you. The real you. Ice and all. And I'm not going anywhere, his breath caught. Elena, so here's what's going to happen. You're going to that board meeting. You're going to handle whatever crisis needs handling with that brilliant, ruthless mind of yours. And I'm going to stand right beside you, not as your assistant, but as the woman who refuses to let you face your demons alone. We fight this together, or we don't fight at all. That's the deal. Alexander Frost, the man who built empires and crushed competitors without mercy, the man who'd forgotten how to smile, smiled, actually smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Incredible, he whispered, pulling me close. I know. It's why you pay me the big bucks. His laugh was warm and real and free. I'm going to have to give you a raise. You're going to have to give me a lot more than that, Mr. Frost. Alexander, he corrected softly. And I plan to give you everything. Starting with the truth I should have told you years ago. I've been in love with you since the day you told me you only cry at weddings. I've been yours since the moment you walked into my office and refused to be intimidated by me. My heart soared, light and free and impossibly full. Then I hope you're ready to see me cry. Why? I smiled against his lips. Because I have a feeling there's going to be a wedding in our future. Board meeting was brutal. They questioned everything, my qualifications, my relationship with Alexander, whether I'd been feeding information to competitors. But Alexander defended me with a ferocity that left the entire room stunned. He made it clear that anyone who came after me would answer to him, and no one was foolish enough to make an enemy of Alexander Frost. As for the threats, it turned out they came from Marcus Chen, a competitor who'd been trying to sabotage the quantum merger. Alexander's security team traced the messages back to him within 48 hours. Chen was arrested for corporate espionage and intimidation. The quantum merger went through without another hitch. 6 months later, Alexander Frost, still ruthless in business, still impossible to beat, proposed to me in his office at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. The same place where he'd first let his walls come down. They say Alexander Frost is still the Ice King, still feared in boardrooms, still capable of dismantling companies with a single phone call. But now, everyone knows his secret. Underneath all that ice beats a heart that chose love over fear, a heart that learned to melt and me. I'm still his partner. These days, My official title is Chief Operating Officer, and his fiancée, unofficially. I'm the woman who taught a billionaire how to feel, and he's the man who taught me that even the coldest hearts can learn to love. They just need the right person to show them it's safe to thaw. As for those who tried to use me against him, let's just say Alexander Frost doesn't lose, especially when he's fighting for something that matters, when he's fighting for love. The Ice King found his queen, and together we're absolutely unstoppable, because some love stories aren't about finding someone perfect. They're about finding someone worth melting for, someone worth being human for. And every single day, Alexander Frost chooses to be human for me. That's the thing about ice. It seems permanent, indestructible, eternal. But give it enough warmth, enough patience, enough love, and it transforms into something else entirely. Something beautiful, something real, something worth the wait.